Wednesday. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Book Tour. I'm your host, Maddie Margarita, here with Diana Pardee, our tech wizard. Every Wednesday at 10 a.m., the Southern California Writers Association turns our Facebook page over to a different writer to talk about their books and their work. This week, we welcome Saul Lelchuk. Saul's debut novel, Save Me from Dangerous Men, was named a USA Today Best Book of 2019. The series, which has been optioned for film and television, has been published in multiple languages around the world. The sequel, One Got Away, will be published this April and is currently available for pre-order. Saul is a member of the Mystery Writers of America and International Thriller Writers, and he divides his time between Oakland, California and New Hampshire, where he teaches creative writing at Dartmouth College. Welcome, Saul.
Hey, great to see you, Maddie. Great to see you again, I should say. This is certainly not our first event together, and it's always very fun for me. So thanks for having me on today.
Well, likewise, I'm always interested in what kind of predicaments you have put our poor Nikki Griffin in, our intrepid bookstore owner slash equalizer. So do you want to talk a little bit about Nikki and the series and maybe One Got Away?
Absolutely, and agreed. Life is never that easy for Nikki, and I guess that's just a part of being a PI and bookseller.
It's
so
your too, so
exactly my fault. So just a couple of words about who Nikki is. She runs a bookstore in Berkeley. She lives in the East Bay in California. I live in Oakland myself. That's probably about all we have in common besides a fondness for motorcycles. Nikki runs a used bookstore by day, but by night she does a bit of a different type of work. She does vigilante work and takes PI cases, especially for women who have been wronged in different ways, oftentimes by the men closest to them in their lives. And the first book, Save Me from Dangerous Men, saw Nikki get wrapped up in something that was completely outside of her comfort zone, which was a case involving AI technology and a kind of secretive, shadowy Silicon Valley firm. It was a lot of fun for me to put her in that particular predicament because, like I said, it just was completely what Nikki was unused to. She is someone who kind of eschews technology in her day-to-day life. She doesn't have a cell phone. She doesn't own a television. You're going to find her with a book far more often than, in front of the, screen or anything like that. And so the idea of plunging her into this case involving this semi-futuristic, Silicon Valley firm was fun for me because it makes her just constantly confront what's completely unfamiliar to her. I grew up reading, all the great California writers, Dashiell Hammett and, Chandler and, Kane and so forth. And so for me, it was really fun when I was creating Nikki to make her a bit of a throwback. She can knock back a neat scotch with the best of them. She has a kind of, shall we say, understated style. She's certainly no stranger to violence. It comes naturally to her, but she will try to use words first. And to me, it was fun to give that kind of throwback style, but at the same time, make her preoccupied with these, very contemporary issues, ranging from pretty big things in the world, from domestic violence to AI surveillance and so forth. The first book saw Nikki striking up a relationship with a Berkeley grad student. And one of the things that was fun for me in the sequel to do was to get to, bring back some of those characters who readers seem to enjoy in the first one. So in the second book, the essential plot is that she gets hired by a wealthy San Francisco family to take on a case in which the elderly matriarch of the family has been defrauded and perhaps blackmailed by a con man, a very elegant British fellow with a silver tongue and perhaps not so silver motives. And so Nikki has to pursue him and find out what's going on. Along the way, we get to see a bit more of her romance with Ethan, the grad student who is now an assistant professor at Berkeley. And she is confronting a problem that, while not equal to what she was hired to do, he wants to move in together, and Nikki is someone who likes her privacy. And so it was really fun for me to play with that dynamic and see if as their relationship progresses, where exactly she's going to land with that. In terms of the book itself, it was a lot of fun for me to send her bouncing all over California. She ends up down in Monterey. She finds herself, in the shady stolen car business and Salinas. Then she's back up in the Bay Area and so forth. And so I love using the many rich and varied settings that California has to place her scene by scene throughout the book. One interesting thing for me was how I came up with the idea. It actually has its basis very loosely in nonfiction. Very good family friends of ours, the elderly father, was indeed defrauded by a con woman who ended up taking quite a bit, I should say, from him. And what was interesting to me was not the con itself, but his reaction to it when the family found out and his children and grandchildren said, okay, we're going to go after her and, get this back and everything. And he said, no, I'm not going to allow that. I want her to have it. And I want this woman, whatever she took from me, not to be pursued or gone after at all, by our family. And of course, they were not hiring people like Nikki to go after her. I think they were sticking to traditional law enforcement. But to me, as a writer, what's fascinating is looking for those moments that don't seem intuitive. They don't seem obvious. The idea that someone could get defrauded out of this huge sum of money, everyone would think, okay, I'm going to go get it back. And so to me, the interesting part of the fulcrum, so to speak, was what if you don't want to do that? What if you're saying no? And so to me, Nikki finds herself in this position where the son of the mother in this book who was defrauded is very gung-ho trying to get it all back. But the mother's in a different place emotionally and mentally. And that was really interesting for me to tease out throughout the plot of the book and figure out what are the different motivations of these people? What do they appear to want? And what do they actually want underneath that service? Obviously, that's one of the pleasures, I think, of reading any mystery or thriller. Usually what people tell you first is not what they end up actually wanting or doing. And so to me, it, immediately created this really enjoyable playing field, which I got to dump Nikki in and let her figure her way out. So that will be One Got Away, releasing this April, the sequel to Save Me from Dangerous Men.
Well, I'm excited to read it. I love Nikki. I think she is a unique character, and I think one of the themes that I see through your books, which is really interesting, is that concept of truth. Because, like as you said, nobody seems to tell Nikki the truth in any of these books right away. And then I actually had thought about that, and then I was thinking, well, maybe they tell her their truth, and then you go on to explore the true nature of truth. So at least as you see it. So I think that that's kind of interesting, especially in the context of what you were saying about somebody not going after someone who maybe they believe loves them because they love them. Maybe that is their truth. So I think I love that complicated, twisty dynamic in your book. And I think I love the way that you write, Nikki, and writing from such a great female character in a relationship with a man, being a man. How was that? I mean, is that difficult writing in a different perspective, or how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was not as difficult as I might have thought it would be, because I feel like once you get a lock on the characters, and at this point I've spent quite a bit of time with them. I mean, I started the first Nikki book, in late 2016, finished it in like early 2017. So, these characters at this point are pretty familiar to me. And I think that's one of the joys of writing a sequel, that you get really, really comfortable with the characters you're creating. And so to me, for example, like when I set up a scene with Nikki and Ethan, obviously within a scene, I'm thinking, what does he want? What does she want? Do they, are they seeing eye to eye on that? But at the same time, when they go back and forth with their banter, or where they argue about, what kind, whether they're going to watch the Maltese Falcon or the Postman Always Rings Twice for their Saturday night, movie or anything like that. And that kind of, banter to me comes pretty easily, just because I feel like I have a lock for each one of these characters. I like creating situations of, pressure that are relatable, I think, to just about, any adult reader. So for example, one person wanting to maybe accelerate a relationship a little bit and the other one a little more unsure. One person maybe wanting to move in a little bit more than the other one. We've all been there in some version of that. It doesn't really matter to me whether it's a man and a woman, two men, two women, what have you. The point is that it's a relationship and there's two of you, and people don't always perfectly add up, eye to eye with what they want. And so to me, you can kind of play with those emotional pressures almost regardless of things like gender. I think that gender comes secondary to the fact that there's simply two people together wanting to be together, but not necessarily wanting that exact same pace.
Interesting. Okay, and then uh, I know in your first book you made, because Nikki's day job is the bookstore, you included some of your books when she was making your favorite books when she was making recommendations to her customers. And I love to see that, because what a great character reveal that is for her. Did you do that in book 2?
Oh, of course I had to.
Yeah.
It plays out in different ways. There might be one moment where a man with a young daughter comes into the store, and Nikki gets kind of excited seeing herself in that little girl and starts bringing her around to show her not only the book that she came in wanting, but also maybe giving her a few recommendations of her own, and really thinking of her at that exact age, which was just before her life fell apart, and this terrible thing was done to her family that was, essentially the origin of who Nikki is as an adult. In a different part of the book, Nikki semi-accidentally, I'd say just about completely accidentally, picks up a sidekick, a boy who's unusually observant and helps her track someone. And one of the things that they have in common is she sees that he's reading, I think at the time he's reading the book Boy by Roald Dahl, which was certainly one of my favorites growing up. And she sees that and they kind of connect, because a lot of the adults in his life don't have any particular interest in this kid, let alone what he's reading. But Nikki recognizes, again, something maybe of herself, even as a reader, and sees that cover and talks to him about it. And that begins a working relationship, I guess you could call it, that takes them, through the book. So for me, introducing titles that I know and titles that I love within the pages of this, I mean, having a bookseller as a main character is a pretty easy way to do that. And it's pretty fun for me.
And it also, what a great way to show her intuitive skills, and what a great window into your mind that we get to see. So what a great way to connect with your readers. So just, I guess, to wrap up our time together, what would you think or what would you want someone who finishes one of your books to feel? What kind of experience do you hope that they have when they read a book written by Saul Lelchuk?
Great question. So I will start with the caveat that I think that any reader can, of course, form any impression of a book. As a writer, you get it as close as you can to what you want and what you want it to be. And then there's this kind of terrifying, exciting moment where you shoot it up into the atmosphere, so to speak, and you can't touch it and you can't affect it. And after that, it's simply going to be taken by whoever does read it, whether a casual reader, whether a diehard mystery fan with very high expectations, whether a blogger or a bookstore owner or anything like that. And yeah, that's, I think, definitely one of the joys and terrors of, writing a book in the first place. For me, I think that a few different things. I think back to the reason that I, love mysteries, and that I love, any story involving like a wrong that occurs in the world that has to be righted and won't be righted by anyone except that protagonist. No one else is going to do it, or no one else is going to notice or to be in a position to do anything. And so to me, it's, enjoyable to think about, like, here's something that happened, in injustice of some sort, and someone has to do something about it, and it's only going to be this person. When someone reads my work, I hope they're excited. I hope they're entertained. I hope they enjoy turning the pages. I guess more fundamentally, I do hope that they care about the characters. I remember that I read in a forward to one of Chandler's anthologies or volumes, a forward talking about how the pleasures of reading Chandler are not really about the plot. It's not really about finding out what happens, but it's really about following these characters around through this wonderful Southern California world, the seediness and the kind of artifice of the 1% and wherever they're running into. The pleasures of the reading come from seeing these characters interacting with other characters on the page, and what happens in the book is secondary. And I guess to a certain extent, I've always admired that, as someone who tries to write stories and books that have characters that you want to spend time with. You want to see where they go, and you can enjoy their page by page interactions, regardless of the fact that, yes, of course, you also want to find out where the narrative is going and what's happening at the end. So I think if you can create that as a writer, then it's a pretty admirable thing.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you for your time. We wish you best of luck on One Got Away. And if people can't wait, what can they, if you want to talk about, Save Me from Dangerous Men, or can they buy that?
Yeah, absolutely. They can buy Save Me from Dangerous Men. It's actually on a ebook deal across all ebook platforms, Nook, Kindle, $2.99 for the month of February, and then it's out in paperback in March. So absolutely pick up a copy of it if you like Nikki, if you want to see what happens between her and Ethan, or between her and her next case, then One Got Away is coming up right afterwards.
And I think it's perfect that Save Me from Dangerous Men will be available on special for Valentine's Day. So there you go. All right. Well, Saul, thank you very much. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. If you enjoyed this bookshot, you can hopefully share it with friends, or you can also view it again on our YouTube channel, which is SCWA Writers Online. So until next Wednesday, please stay safe, and we will see you soon.